Good morning, my dear students. Today we are going to start with the last chapter of this first semester, that is the freedom movement of 1857. That is the ninth chapter. We are going to see how the India got freedom, and due to various reasons, what was the outbreak of the revolt of 1857 CE, what were the different political and the military reasons and immediate reasons, and who were the leaders who had taken part in the widespread of all the revolt of this 1857 movement. We are going to see this chapter and understand this chapter, because this is the last chapter and basically everything is been included in this. How the Britishers has overruled the Indians, how they have suppressed them, how they have neglected the Indians. So in this chapter we are going to see this, what were the different policies, how the annexation policy had been given, most important, even the doctrine of lapse we are going to study in this chapter. So the first, that is the freedom movement of 1857 CE. Nationalism emerged in India due to not only the arrival of the Europeans but also their behavior and policies. An important event happened in the year 1857 CE, which became the first in the factors responsible for consolidating the sentiment of the nationalism in our country. So we all know that nationalism has emerged in our country not only for the arrivals, that it was not only for only of the arrivals of the Europeans in India, and that was the very first chapter of this our socials, the arrivals of the Europeans in India, but also we had considered their behavior and the policies which they have taken place during the whole annexation processes, during the whole policies which they have formed for the Indians, because due to the arrivals of the Europeans, India has suffered a lot. Indian peoples were suffered a lot in this. So what were the factors responsible? This we are going to learn in this chapter. So the first, that is the reasons for the outbreak of the revolt of 1857 CE. So what was the main reason? The main reason of 1857 CE was the widespread dissatisfaction among the people in India due to the suppressive policy of the British adopted to spread the empire in India. So the first and the foremost, the main reason only was that the outbreak of the revolt, that is basically the widespread of the dissatisfaction, because they were not satisfied. Definitely they were not satisfied of the word given by the Britishers to the Indians, because they thought that Indians are very much less enough capable of doing all the duties in order or in comparison with the Britishers. So that was only the main concept moving, but the revolt which had taken place, the main thing of this was, that is basically the Indian rebellion. Yes, the rebellion has been taken place, and so they adopted such policies. Yes, in the India, so due to such policies, the British adopted to spread the empire in India. Now we will see, let us review what were the reasons. The first reason, that is the social and the religious reasons. The policy of the social reforms by the company made people feel insecure and suspicious. Yes, the policy what they have formed for the socialism, they made this policy, the company made very much feel insecure, because the decisions taken by them was not proper. The people of Indians was not at all satisfied with their decision. So they felt that the government was trying to convert them to Christianity and destroy the Indian culture and religious forever, because as Britishers were the Christians, and so basically they were feeling that they have come here, they will overrule, and they were trying to convert the other religions into the Christian religions. But yes, so the people were insecure about all such things. They were having a fear because the British rule had come over India. So that was one of the basic thing which they were trying to brood it over up, that what will happen for the future for us. People believed that the Indian social system was deliberately undermined in the railways, jails and military. A larger section of our society was unorthodox at that time, and thus the new changes aroused dissatisfaction in them. Yes, they definitely, at that point of time, the large number of people were having orthodox beliefs. They were the customs, the old traditions. Definitely they were having continuously, they were doing all such customs of the sati system and the dudh piti systems, the old orthodox beliefs, they were following it. So at a very large extent, now if you going to stop all such customs, it will affect sometimes. Yes, so it is going to have some changes in that. So that was one of the main reason for the dissatisfaction among the religious beliefs. And so the social and religious reforms were being the most important reason for the revolt of the outbreak. As a result, many people joined this freedom movement to sustain their social religious culture. So they were very much insecure that if our culture will be snatched from us, yes, if our culture would be taken by us, then definitely we will not remain anywhere. They will try to convert them into their own religion and all such things. So they were having very much tension. They were all having a lot of things brooding in their mind, that what is going to happen. So that was one of the main reason. The social and the religious reforms was only the main reason. The second, that we come to the point, that is economic reasons. The aim of the British was to bring prosperity to England at the cost of India, and as a result, most of the section of Indian society become impoverished. The landlords and the peasants, having lost their lands, participated in the revolt. So the economic reasons, so by economically also they all were very much down, because Britishers had overruled everything, they had taken over. So now the main aim, basically the aim of the Britishers was to prosper England at the cost of India. Yes, so they want to prosper England by taking lots of revenue and charges from India, and they would prosper their own country. So that was one of the basic negative things. But Indians was that feeling that why India could not be a proper prosperous country, rather than because the Britishers were overruling us. And so at that point of time, if the Britishers ruled, they are just going to prosper their country. What about our country? So that was one of the big question over for the Indians, and as a result, most of the sections of the Indian society became impoverished. So this was only the reason. So they were not improving themselves, because they were not able to improve themselves, because the Britishers were not allowing them not to flourish in any of the regions. The landlords and the peasants, that I told you, the landlords and the peasants means the farmers, the small farmers, they have participated in this revolt because they wanted their own lands, which they have which the British government had taken into their own hands. Then the third, that is the political reasons. The East India Company acquired the Diwani rights, that is right to collect revenue, and as a result, their victory in the Battle of Buxar in 1764 in CE. This was followed by the policy of annexation, aggressive policy of expansion with the help of the subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse, policy of annexation, and war diplomacy. So we all know that after the Battle of the Buxar in 1764, the various policy, the policy of annexation took place by Lord Dalhousie, and the expansion policy was also being expanded with the help of the subsidiary alliance system, and the doctrine of lapse. Now, what do you mean by doctrine of lapse? Doctrine of lapse is a doctrine that whoever the king left without the throne, yes, without an heir, basically. So if a king is there and if he is not having a son, that means the next throne will be not given to the son, but that the whole kingdom will be put in the hands of the British government. So that was only the doctrine of lapse thing. So if a son, a male heir is not born, definitely after that the whole kingdom would be given in the hands of the British government. So the doctrine of lapse also was being one of the reasons for the coming under the political reasons for it, and the policy of annexation and it were diplomacy. Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi and Raja Kunwar Singh of Bihar, who were among the few of the victims of these policies, joined the revolt to regain their territory. So they joined the revolt. They aggressively opposed but because they wanted their own lands. And so these people, Rani Lakshmibai and Raja Kunwar Singh, who was from Bihar, they joined the revolts to regain, that means to again want their own territories, because they did not want their territories to give in the hands of the Britishers. Landlords and peasants who had lost their lands to join the revolt. Yes, so I told you that the farmers, the small farmers who has lost their lands especially, they also joined the revolt, so in order that they can get the justice and they can get their own lands back. The fourth reason, that is a military reason. The number of the British officers and soldiers was very less in the vast country like India. The ratio of the Indian soldiers to the British soldiers was approximately 6:1 in the military. The higher posts in the military were reserved for the British. Yes, so see, now here also it became one of the basic discrimination between the Indians and the Britishers. The higher posts were giving to the Britishers, and the opportunity of promotions was very limited to the Indian soldiers. So there was a big difference between the salary of an Indian soldier and the British soldier. So the number of the Britishers, yes, the British soldiers and the Indian soldiers were very less in the vast country in like India, and so the ratio of the Indian soldiers to British soldiers were approximately 6:1. Yes, the ratio was totally 6:1. So the higher post, basically the main posts were being reserved by the Britishers, and also there had been very much of difference of the salaries between the Indian soldier and a British soldier. So this was one of the basic comparison, my dear students. So we felt very much bad that Indian soldiers, who are also giving their own lives for the protecting our own motherland, definitely why such difference should be there between an old British soldier and a Indian soldier. So that was one of the basic reason for it. Then the Indian foot soldiers received, now they are giving the bifurcation, my dear students. See over here that what was the amount they have been received. That is, the Indian soldiers received 7 rupees, while the British soldiers received 1500 rupees per month. At that point of time, 1500 rupees per month, that was one of the big amount. And the Indian foot soldiers, they have received only 7 rupees. See the difference, my dear students, where 7 rupees and where 1500. So that was totally a discrimination between an Indian soldier and the British soldiers. The British soldiers considered the Indian soldiers to be low and insignificant, and as a religious restrictions, the Indian soldiers were not allowed to cross the sea, or to else the persons to be treated as an outcast. So that was one of the basic disadvantage. There were the strict norms for the Indian soldiers. They were not allowed to even cross the sea, and also the person would be treated, also he would be treated as an outcast. That means some of the Indian soldiers who had joined their army, they were treated very much low, that you are an Indian, you will not know anything, and they were felt at a very low point, right? Then as per the religious restrictions, okay, then despite this custom, the Indian soldiers were compelled to cross the sea in order to fight the battles for the British. Thus, like the other Indians, the soldiers too felt that in their religion was at stake. The soldiers, being a part of the Indian society, shared the same sentiments of the grief, suspicion and anger as others did. So basically, yes, it would definitely feel to our Indian soldiers that why such a discrimination. The same work we are doing, even the British soldiers are doing the same work, and the same work is being done by even the Indian soldiers. Then why such difference between a salary of the Indian soldiers, and why such a dissatisfaction of the, or we can say that why discrimination of the outcast of the religious, right? Religion, why there was a discrimination between the religions, or why there is such a discrimination between an Indian soldier and a British soldier. Why? Because the only difference is that is the soldier is an Indian and the another is a British. No, yes, basically what the answer is basically that the Britishers was having their own rule. They wanted their own rule by themselves. They wanted the whole power in their hands. So the Indians were being treated at a very low pace. So even the Indian soldiers were trying their own level best, they would not compete with them. So now the next thing, that is the immediate reasons. What were the immediate reasons? There were various reasons for the rising anger and discontentment among the people towards the British rule. In 1857, a new Enfield rifle was introduced in the Indian Army, and the cartridge of this rifle had to be bitten off before being used. Yes, so a new rifle, yes, that is basically, we all know the new rifle has been introduced in the January 1857, and it has to be refilled, right? You have to make oiling of that rifles there, then only it will work it smooth. Yes, the cartridge you have to make. So this cartridge was greased. So that cartridge of that rifle was being greased with the fat of cow and pig. You might see, my dear students, as this was so much disseminating that that was totally being greased. How we are sometimes if it is the iron is being rust, and if you want to just put the iron in, if a latch is there of the door, and if you will put some oil in there in order to put it will become smooth. Yes, so at the same point of time, here also the cartridge of the rifle became so much hard and tough, so it was being greased with the fat of a cow and pig. For the Hindus, the beef, and for the Muslims, the pork was prohibited by their religion. Hence they felt that the British were deliberately trying to desanctify their religion. So by doing this, the Hindus, the sentiments of the other religions, whether it can be Hindus or Muslims, or it was being hurt, and so the Indians were feeling that they are deliberately, means they are purposely doing these things in order to desanctify us. That means we will always brood it over it. We will always think that why they are doing all such things, and we will they will desanctify our religion, right? They will consider our religion to be a low religion. The response of their complaints in the same regards was not satisfactory, and hence the 19th Battalion of Bagpur was the first to refuse the use of the cartridge, and as a result the entire battalion was disbanded. So the whole battalion was first, they were first to refuse this cartridge, because you just see the cartridge is being greased with the fat of cow and pig. That is not at all good, my dear. That is not at all good. If you want to grease, you can grease it with any of the oils or any other lubricating oils used for the engines and machines, but this thing, it is not good. So basically their dissentiments were being hurt. Now the next thing, that is the planning of the revolt and the Mangal Pandey. It was planned to begin the revolt across the nation against the East India Company on 31st May 1857. Leaders like Nana Sahib Peshwa, Bahadur Shah Zafar, Kunwar Singh, and the Nawab of the Awadh had joined hands with Tatia Tope, an efficient military commander, Rango Bapuji, an accomplished planner, and Azimullah Khan, a lawyer and a journalist, to lead the revolt. So these people were there basically who had joined the revolt. Lotus and roti were the symbols to join the revolt of the civilians and the soldiers respectively. These symbols were circulated across the nation. Bards, Hindu and Muslim priests, awliyas and messengers played the part in spreading the word about the revolt. So basically all the people who are who wanted to take part in the revolt, and the main symbol was the lotus and roti were the symbols for the revolt. Mangal Pandey opposed the use of the cartridge greased with the fat of cows and opposed the use. Yes, so basically Mangal Pandey is an Indian, and so if the Indian sentiments have been hurt, definitely these leaders will oppose such things in order to get back their own religion and their own customs. So it disrupted the planning, and the objectives of the revolt could not be achieved. Mangal Pandey was born to a Brahmin couple in Nagwa village of Uttar Pradesh. He joined the British army as a soldier at ₹7 as his salary. You see, he was an Indian soldier and he was receiving 7 rupees salary, and that the Britishers was receiving 15, and see the difference. Yes, the Indian soldiers who had agreed to revolt wanted to wait till 31st May, where 26 years old Mangal Pandey could not wait till then. He refused to follow the orders of the using the enfield rifle and challenged the British officers. Sergeant Major Howson ordered to arrest him, but Mangal Pandey shot him. So the British officer, Mr. Howson, he was a British officer, and he ordered to arrest him, the Mangal Pandey, because he opposed that by not using the fat of the cows and pigs for greasing the enfield rifle, and by not using only the rifle in the revolt. So there was an arrest order given by the Major Howson, but what he did, but Mangal Pandey had shot him. He defeated another Britisher too. The Indian soldiers refused to arrest Mangal Pandey, being a Brahmin. Yeah, so when he was concerned with the British soldiers, he shot himself by his own rifle. A bleeding Mangal Pandey was taken to the hospital because the British wanted to get information about the plan of the revolt from him. So he also defeated the another Britisher. Mangal Pandey has also defeated the another Britisher, but the only policy of the Indian that they will never ever arrest a Brahmin, because he was a Brahmin. And so when he was concerned by the British soldiers, he shot himself. He felt concerned about he shot himself by his own rifle, and a bleeding Mangal Pandey, yes, so he was was bleeding by himself, was taken to the hospital. And but the British wanted to get some information about the plan of the revolt from him. Then the military court pretended to run a case against the Mangal Pandey on 6th April 1857. The entire proceeding was in English. He was sentenced to death at the end, but did not divulge any information regarding to the revolt to the British. That's how our patriots were. Yes, so basically what happened, he was bleeding, he himself shot himself, and so Mangal Pandey was bleeding, but he was immediately taken to the hospital, but everything became, but that whole case was just filed up in the court in the and it was a case against the Mangal Pandey by doing such this acts. The entire proceedings was being held, it was in English, and basically he was sentenced to the death at the time, but did not divulge in any information. That's how our patriots were. They were not indulged in any other information, and so that is the spirit of our Indian patriots. And he was hanged at 5:30 a.m. on 8th April, and that's how he became the first martyr of the revolt of 1857. So basically he hanged to death. An order was given to hang him, and so on the 8th April 5:30 a.m. he was hanged to death. And Mangal Pandey was the first martyr of this revolt, because he had ever opposed to do such all things by not allowing the rifle to put in the revolt, and by neither greasing them the cartridge by the use of fat of cows and pigs. So this was such the reason. So at that point of time when he opposed all such things, this was not totally being digested by the Britishers, and so what happened, they had taken an arrest order, and finally he himself shot him. The bleeding Mangal Pandey was already taken to the hospital, but a case was being filed against him, and finally we all know that everything was in English, and the British government had taken place over it. They were ordered to hang him, right? The next, that is, we are going to see about the spread of the revolts and its leaders. Now who are the different leaders who had taken initiative for taking their own territories by taking part in the revolt, right? The first, that is, we have already seen that I was reading the name, but now we'll just see about a specific person to whom it is being concerned about it. First, that is Delhi and Bahadur Shah. The soldiers reached Delhi from Meerut in the morning on 11th May. They could capture Delhi with the help of the Indian soldier present there. They convinced the 80-year-old Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar to accept the leadership of this revolt. This news infused a new life in the revolt, and many regions of India joined the revolt. So the soldiers from Delhi, they left on 11th May in the morning, and they conceived the 80-old year Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah what to accept the leadership of the revolt, and so this news was being spread it over to the all regions of the India that the Bahadur Shah has already accepted the revolt, the leadership. The next thing, that is the Kanpur and Nana Sahib. Kanpur broke into the revolt on 4th June 1857, and Nana Sahib Peshwa was asked to assume the leadership of the revolt. However, they had to surrender to the Britishers following an acute shortage of food and water due to the 22-day long siege. So basically, Kanpur broke into the revolt. Why they broke into the revolt? It was on 4th June because the main negative point was that there was an acute shortage of the food. There were no food to eat, and so the 22-day long siege was acute shortage of food and water. That many people had suffered and died, and so there was a revolt of this. But this Nana Sahib Peshwa was asked to assume the leadership of the revolt. Bihar and Kuwar Singh, Patna and Jagdishpur were the main centers of the revolt in Bihar. Kuwar Singh, a 70-year-old landlord, was the leader of the revolt. He fought bravely against the Britishers. During a battle, he shot against his arm to stop the poison from spreading into his body. He chopped his hand off from the elbow and offered it to the river Ganga. He freed Jagdishpur from British control before he died. So he also had taken part in the revolt. Also, he was one of the leader of the revolt, but he fought very much bravely. He fought bravely. He shot himself in his arm. Why? Because the poison, he had consumed over it, right? At that time, when he fought against the Britishers, during a battle he got shot in his arm, and to stop that shot into entering the whole the poison entering to the whole body, what he did, he chopped his whole hand off. That means he cut his hand from the elbow and he offered it to the river Ganga. So you will not ever believe that he was so brave that a man could ever cut his own hand and offer to the river Ganga. He freed Jagdishpur from the British control before he died. The next thing, that is the Jhansi and the great warrior Lakshmi Bai. We all know the Lakshmi Bai is famous and is known for the bravery. Being a lady, she was a very, very brave lady. The Queen of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai, was a great warrior. The Britishers did not accept her adopted son as their heir to the throne. What the Britishers, yes, she was a only great warrior, but the Britishers had not accepted her son, adopted son, to the heir, because he was an adopted son. He is not son of her own, right? This is the reason for joining the revolt. Yes, because then it became the doctrine of lapse over here. Yes, because what the doctrine of lapse is telling, that if a male heir is not there, the whole kingdom will be given into the hands of the Britishers. But here the Rani Lakshmi Bai is telling that I have adopted a son. I have adopted a son, and so now the whole kingdom could be in his hands, right? But the Britishers are telling that you have adopted, it is not your own son. So she took part in the revolt, that this is not a proper reason for them. So she was one of the most skillful leaders of the revolt. This is the reason for joining the revolt. She was one of the most skillful leaders of the revolt. She had also prepared an army of women to fight against the British. They fought bravely against the British. According to the British officials, Queen Lakshmi Bai was one of the greatest women leaders in the revolt of 1857. So we all know that she was one of the greatest ever leader as a woman, was a greater warrior, because none of them would have been too much courageous and brave other than like Rani Lakshmi Bai. Then comes a brave army commander that we all know, that is a Tatya Tope. Nana Sahib Peshwa had made Tatya Tope the commander of the chief at Kanpur. Soon he became his trusted commander. He skillfully fought to free Kanpur, playing the role of a commander for the first time in his life. For the next 2 years, he played a major role in the revolt across the country. No one in his time had fought as many battles as he did. So Tatya Tope had fought many battles, and he had taken part in the battles because he was one of the greatest brave warrior. He wanted to do something for the country. Yes, soldiers from different parts of the India had joined the revolt. From North India, Bareilly, Banaras, Allahabad, Agra, Azamgarh and Gorakhpur had joined. Ajmer, Nisarbad and Abu from Rajputana and Gwalior, Mandsaur, Indore and Dar from central India participated to the revolt. Satara, Kolhapur, Sawantwadi, Nargad, Dharwad, etc. became active in the south. However, these centers were scattered. So these are the southern places, that is Satara, Kolhapur, Satara, Kolhapur. These are all the at presently the states of the cities of the state of Maharashtra. Sawantwadi, Nargad and Dharwad, it can be in Karnataka and the we can say Karnataka and Goa. This was the place, they were active regions in the southern place. So this place was centers was totally being scattered over it. Now we could talk about the revolt of 1857 in Gujarat. The 7th Battalion of the British Army broke into the revolt in Ahmedabad, Gujarat in June 1857. So this is one of the basic thing of the general knowledge also, my dear students, that the 7th Battalion was of the British Army in the revolt in Ahmedabad. It was fought in which month? In the month of June in the year 1857. However, it was soon halted. Dahod, Jalod and Godhra of Panchmahal witnessed the skirmishes with the British Army. The soldiers could capture government offices with the help of the natives, but was soon defeated. The Nayakars of Panchmahal continued the rebellion of almost for a year. So different places were there, that is Dahod, Jahod, Godhra and Panchmahal. Yes, and they witnessed the skirmishes with the British. Skirmishes means a short fight between the groups of people. Yes, a short fight between the groups of the people with the British Army. So the soldiers could capture. Now the soldiers could capture the government offices with the help of the natives and were defeated. In Gujarat also, the Garbar Das Patel, the headman of the Anand in Kheda district, collected almost 2,000 volunteers of the Koli and Nayakara community to join the revolt. He was supported by Jivraj Bhai Thakur of Kanpur, Malaji Joshi and Krishna Das Dave. However, the supporters of the Garbar Das were captured by the Britishers, tied to cannon and were blown off with the cannonball fire. Garbar Das was exiled to Andaman, where he died. The people of the Chanduk village, which was 16 miles away from the Idar, accepted the leadership of Nathaji and Yamaji and joined the revolt. So many people had joined the revolt to oppose the British army, which they have made the policies by themselves. The British has camped at Nandana village between the Oka and Baradi. The British commander of navy became impatient and had reached the fort of Bet Dwarka via the Bay of Bet. Don Juan ordered on attack of the fort. The wagers inside the fort had no such artillery to counter. They soaked the mattresses with water in which they could snatch the cotton balls and cool them immediately. So what they were soaking the mattresses, they were soaking, and they were putting. They could catch the cannon balls which cooled them immediately. Yes, so they were basically they were soaking the mattresses and soaking the mattresses, and basically they were why they were soaking, because they could catch some cannonballs. Now cannonball is a round metal or the stone fired from a cannon. Yes, basically it is a round shot which is specially used for the explosive. Yes, launched from a gun. So basically these are one of the we can call it such explosives which are used, but they were putting into the mattresses, so directly they can shut it from the nobody can ever feel that in the mattresses such balls are being fit over it, and we can see a round shot fired from a large gun. Yes, so that is a cannonball. This would enable the Wagner men to fight the battle without being hit by the cannonballs, and now in the history of the world such as valor and has been exhibited. Wagner women very bravely disarmed the cannonballs without worrying about their own lives. Their act of bravery was equivalent to that of the Rani Lakshmi Bai. These women were the Lakshmi Bais of Gujarat. So Wagner's women, they basically the state, they were very much powerful, and so they were also being made the same level like of Lakshmi Bai, because Lakshmi Bai also one of the great warrior. Cities of the North Gujarat like Patan, Keralu, Biloda, Mudeti broke into the revolt with the help of natives. And apart from this, in December 1858, Tatya Tope stayed with his army in Panchmahal district of Gujarat. He had to escape to the forest of Bansawara when being chased by the British army. So many people even in the Gujarat also took part in the revolt by gaining their own territories, and they wanted to gain their own territories by themselves. Now the final, that is how the revolt had been ended. During the revolt, weapons and soldiers were supplied to the British from the England. The revolt had started on 10th May 1857, but end on 1857. British were able to regain their own control of Banaras and Allahabad. Kanpur was recaptured by the end of July, and Delhi in September 1857. Bahadur Shah Zafar and his queen Begum Zeenat Mahal were imprisoned and exiled to Rangoon, the capital of Burma, where they died after a few years. Their 3 sons were murdered. Lucknow was, this was now the end of the revolt, what were being taken place over it. Lucknow was recaptured in the March in 1858. Jhansi fell because of the treachery of one of the courtiers of Jhansi. As a result, the Lakshmi Bai escaped towards Kalpi, where she died while fighting a battle with the British troops. Nana Sahib Peshwa escaped to Nepal after the final defeat. It is believed that he lived in the Shihor village of Bhavnagar district of Gujarat, where he is believed to have died in 1902. So Nana Sahib Peshwa, he has been died in the Bhavnagar district of Gujarat, and it is said that the Tatya Tope was captured due to the betrayal of one of his allies, and according to the official documents, Tatya Tope was hanged like Mangal Pandey. The order was being hanged, so this Tatya Tope was also being hanged on 18 April 1859. However, as per the other sources, we come to know that Tatya Tope had managed to escape and someone else was hanged in his place. It is believed that he had spent the last years of his life in Navsari. So that was one of the greatest things, that it was given the order for the Tatya Tope to be hanged, but finally they came to know that at the time of hanging, Tatya Tope was not there, but any other person was there. So we could come to know from the various sources that he has spent the last years in Navsari in Gujarat. Then, why was the revolt a failure? The revolutionists failed to retrieve the power from the Britishers due to their limitations. So, why they thought that this is a failure? The rebels lacked coordination. There was an absence of central leaderships. There was no provision for the reinforcement of men, money, and ammunition. So basically, the rebels, they were not, coordination was lacking. Leadership was also one of the basic reasons for the failure, and also the reinforcement of money, man, and the ammunitions, the arms and ammunitions were not being properly given. So that was one of the biggest failure. The outbreak of the revolt happened way before his pre-planned date. As a result, the planning was so the planning was not proper. When to do, how to do it, and what to do it. That was one of the biggest question coming ever in their minds, and so that was also the biggest failure. The revolt remained concentrated largely in North India. Many social reformers refrained directly or indirectly from joining the revolt. This proves that the intellectual class did not support the revolt. India is a country known for its regional diversity in languages, foods, habits, dressing, etc. Before the British rule, the people were ruled by the regional dynasties, and as a result, the sentiments of the nationalism belonging to India as one nation had not developed in their people or in the leaders. Many leaders either sided with the British or remained passive at the time of revolt. The Sikhs and the Gurkhas fought by the sides of the British, which proved to be the major disadvantage for the. So I told you that the old traditions and customs, that was also one of the main disadvantage for the revolt and for the failure of revolt, because they were not going towards beyond their own religions or their own customs and traditions. They were stick to their own. Some we can say that some limitations were being done, were being imposed by them, so they could not do it. But if some freedom was given by them, they could have even done something more to not to happen this failure for the revolt. The British has a superior army, weapons and military commanders compared to the rebels, and all the leaders were fighting for regaining the power of the territories lost the British, and they were not fighting to the freedom for their own nation. So the Britishers, yes, basically they were knowing that the arms and ammunitions, the rifles and all what the Britishers were using, that was more and more powerful than the Indians when they were using it. And the last thing, that all the communists, all the basically the leaders, they were fighting for their own territories. That was only the first basic thing, that the revolt, why this revolt became a failure, because they were not fighting for their own nation, for the India, but they were only fighting for their own territories. So that was one of the, just if you fight for your own nation, one nation, the all people come to fight for the one nation, definitely this revolt would have not been a failure. But they were fighting for their own territories, that means their own land only. For example, a leader is fighting for only for the Karnataka state or a Maharashtra state, that only state will give their orders, the others will be remaining as it is. So that is one of the major drawback over here, is one of the failure for the revolt of 1857. So now what were the consequences and effects? The revolt was not successful against the Britishers, and however it ushered in the new era of the change. Company rule came to an end, and India came under the rule of the crown. The influence in the internal affairs of the princely states of India was stopped. The British government was compelled to change its policy towards India. The salary allowances and facilities given to the Indian soldiers were increased. This revolt helped in invoking a feeling of nationalism in the people of India. So it came to an end. Revolt was not successful against the Britishers. Why? Because the company had came to an end in India, and so the internal affairs and the princely states were totally being we can say that the princely internal affairs of the business, the trade activities, they were totally being stopped, and the British government was totally changed to their own policies. Even the salary and allowances were being increased to the Britishers as compared to the Indians, and so a feeling of nationalism became a little bit low, because they failed to do all these things, because the main motive was only to give the benefit to their own territory, to their own region, but not to the whole country or not to the whole nation. So that was one of the greatest failure for the revolt, outbreak of the revolt of 1857 CE. I hope, my dear students, that you have understood this chapter. Little bit lengthy, little bit boring. I cannot say that much boring. It was interesting to know the history part, but then also now I've already shared the PDF given to you, so you can just write the question answers and then you can move it for yourself. Thank you, my dear students. Thank you very much and have a good day.